recently a North Korean defector came out and talked about her story. Her name is Yeonmi Park, and she was discussing what it was like to escape from North Korea, go to China, and then eventually make her way to South Korea with her family. Now, in the beginning, her family wasn't necessarily comfortable, but her father worked for the government, and as a result, she had some perks that other citizens of North Korea didn't get. But then he was accused of doing something wrong and was sent to prison for 3 years. While he was in prison, he developed cancer, so they allowed him to come out in order to get treatment. As soon as he came out, he grabbed his family members and they crossed to China, which is extremely risky, and they had to be in hiding. Now, the problem with that is you would think that in China they can be refugees, but no, China and North Korea are allies, and as a result, China will actually send them back to North Korea if they get caught. Finally, they made their way to South Korea and they're safe, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of psychological counseling in order to undo the type of brainwashing that they went through when they were in North Korea. So her story is really interesting because, you know, you watch the documentary that was done by Frontline, I believe, and, you know, everyone's praising the leader, our dear leader, and you're wondering, is it sincere or is it something that, you know, they say because they don't want to get killed? Is it a mix of both? And for a lot of people, the brainwashing is effective enough to make them think that these leaders or the leader is a god, okay?
So that's what happened in this case. And it actually, Anna's right, it answers the question. Remember when Kim Jong-il, the former leader, died? It was all that weeping, and we were wondering, like, is it a put on so you didn't get put in a concentration camp? I think that based on her story, no, they actually feel it. Because here's the part that's hard for us to understand, which is that it's something that you grew up with. From day one, they're putting this in your head. Like, you know, we're taught how do you eat with a fork and knife, how do you do, you know, all this thing, or perhaps we're taught our particular religion, so we think there's no way it's not true. So they're taught that Kim Jong-il was a god, and that he could read your thoughts, so that's what they think. And by the way, to get away from this is, the courage involved is unbelievable. If they see you escaping, they shoot on sight.
They don't even ask any questions.
Yeah, it's not a matter of we'll apprehend you and see what you're up to. No, they'll shoot you and you're dead.
Yeah.
And they crossed the frozen river into China, and then they knew they're still not safe in China, and then they crossed the desert in Mongolia, and then from Mongolia they get to South Korea. And despite the fact that they had to run and they faced all this, and she had seen a classmate's mother executed because they did a public execution.
Yeah, so we actually have a really short video where she talks about this. Let's take a really quick look at that.
What did you think would happen to you if you had bad thoughts about him?
Maybe I can be killed by...
Be killed?
Yeah, just police, yeah.
Now, she thought that because she thought that Kim Jong-il could read her thoughts.
Mind. Yeah, so let me tell you what she wrote. I think it's so interesting. She says, this whole time, I was still so brainwashed. This is when she's already in South Korea. I was still so brainwashed that I thought Kim Jong-il could read my mind from afar. Even though I had escaped, I wouldn't let myself think anything negative about the regime. I realized that everything I thought was a lie. This is after she did a ton of reading and went through counseling and all of that. I had not been a real person. I was created for the regime to work for them. If they ordered us to die, I would have died for them. It's amazing.
Yeah.
When Kim Jong-il died, her mother couldn't believe it. We were in South Korea, and then her mother said, he can't die because he's not human. He's a god.
It took them approximately 3 years to get deprogrammed. So even though they've escaped under these unbelievable circumstances, their father was in prison, they saw the public executions, but still in their head they're thinking, no, these South Koreans are lying to us. That's crazy. Obviously Kim Jong-il is a god. Like, it didn't work out for us, but he's obviously a god. She wouldn't allow herself to have a bad thought about the regime that she was running away from at the risk of death, right? Until like 3 years later. So this brainwashing is an unbelievable concept, and it's real, and it happens, and unfortunately they've done it to a whole country.
I know, and think about how they managed to make it so effective. You cut everyone off from the outside world. You know, they don't have access to anything, any type of communication, no internet, no smartphones, none of this technology that led to the Arab Spring and, you know, other revolutions. And so, yeah, it's really easy for them to do that.
Yeah, and so we have an entire country that if they are to ever be liberated, has to be deprogrammed for years on end. So that really scared me so much, because if you think about it, they have all those weapons pointed towards South Korea, to Japan. They claim that they can hit the U.S. There's no way they could hit the U.S. But who knows, maybe after some time. So they're going to do this massive amount of damage. But once, you go to quote unquote liberate North Korea, if that day ever comes, they're not going to think they're being liberated. They're so brainwashed, they might fight the guys coming to save them and do a tremendous amount of damage to both sides in the meanwhile. It's unbelievable how much this one family and the military leadership in North Korea has damaged millions of people for decades at a time and led to what she now describes as a non-human existence.